Okay, welcome to the next part of the video. This is again another Orbiter 2010 video where we're learning about IMFD. And if you look up on the screen, you'll see another picture there alongside mine, and that's Dimitri. He is the IMFD guru that's helping us out. In the last video, we took a look at the basics of setting up IMFD to get out to the moon. So we're going to pick right back up there where we left off, and we're going to get into the details of actually how to perform the burn. So let me unpause here. And before we get into let me go ahead and pause since the TEJ is only 400 seconds away. Before we actually get into the burn, let's do a recap, because it'll probably be at least a week since people saw the last video. So let's do a recap here on the important parts to go through when setting up IMFD to go out to the moon. So basically, you bring up IMFD, and let me bring it up on the other side. That way we have a fresh one. And you would press the MNU button to bring up, your program options. And then course, then we want target intercept, and we get to the one that's underlined is the one that's selected. And you can select different ones, again, by next and previous. Once we have target intercept, we'll hit set. Then we're going to target the moon. Actually, it'll help if you spell it correctly, target the moon. Mm-hmm. And by default, interplanetary MFD actually gives you a solution to get out to the moon already. And you can actually use this. So in effect, if you want to be very lazy, you're done. You can actually use this solution here. But those of us that have been doing Orbiter for a while will see here that the delta V, that the solution is very high. That's 11,380 meters per second. So we can improve that by going and doing like we did in the previous video, and I'm not going to run through it all again here, so refer to the previous video. But we first adjust the MJD, that's step 1. Then we go to step 2, which is to adjust the TIN. And then we go back and forth between TEJ and TIN in order to fine-tune everything to get the delta V down as low as like we have over here on the right side. After we worked with this plan for a while, we were able to bring the DV down from whatever it was at the start, which was close to 12,000 meters a second, all the way down to 3.138. And we kind of determined that this was pretty close to the lowest point. If we fiddled with it a bit more, we might be able to get it even lower, but this is pretty good right here. So that's a recap of what we did before. Now, what do we need to do next to actually put this plan into action?
Basically, you're going to tell Interplanetary MFD to make the burn for you. You do that by pressing the page button on the right side.
Okay, so let me actually power off the left side so we don't get confused. Let's page on the side. That's how we select, that's how we go back and forth between the different menus. I guess that would sort of be like pressing the VW button in TransX. So we're going to press PG to get over to this page. And I believe it's BV.
BV, the burn vector.
Okay, we press the BV button, and then it gives us all this data that is telling us how our actual burn is going to be performed.
And now you can press the AB button, which is the auto burn.
Okay, and right before we do that, I'm going to hit Control S to save this right here where we are. Because what we want to do is come back to this save point and talk a little bit more about how to refine this burn even more. But for starters, let's do the burn as we've set it up here. So we're going to press the AB button. And down here in the lower right, it says waiting T minus 216. And that's when IMFD is going to do the burn. And if I'm not mistaken, you can actually press the T to warp time forward, and IMFD will handle everything for you. It'll orient the vessel, it'll start the burn on time, and it'll end the burn on time.
Exactly. Also, as a reminder, this is just the simple, basic way to get to the moon with IMFD. There are more advanced ways to do this that we will cover in another video.
Right. There are other things to know, but we don't want to throw the whole kitchen sink at people all at once because it can be a bit overwhelming. So, and now at about T minus 175 or so, IMFD is kind of kicking in, getting the vessel oriented. And actually, I'm going to press T to warp time forward at a factor of 10 just so we can get up to the point of the burn. even faster. And it's just kind of interesting to note what IMFD is doing, how it's keeping the vessel oriented in the right position, and it'll even burn at 10x, I believe.
Yeah, it will only stop slightly before the burn is complete. It will go to normal time acceleration.
So it's going to actually do the whole burn, and we don't have to worry about chasing the green X around the screen or anything like that.
Nothing at all. You sit back and enjoy the ride.
Yeah, and this is perhaps up to individual taste, but this is probably a little bit more realistic in terms of actual space flight. Granted, these MFDs probably aren't, the same as what they actually use, but I've always kind of thought that in real space flight, you don't have a guy sitting there in the pilot seat of the space shuttle, with his foot on the gas and waiting to hit, waiting.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The computer always takes care of the burns. The guy is there just in case the computer breaks. That's all.
Yeah. So it's a little bit more realistic to program in what you're going to do and then have the computer carry out that instruction.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so the burn's complete, and do we just now warp time forward and then it automatically lands us on the landing pad at Brighton Beach and we don't have to do anything?
No, not exactly. What we have done now is go straight for the center of the moon. If you time warp forward, we're probably going to hit the moon smack dead center. So what we want to do is time accelerate until we are inside the moon's sphere of influence. And from there, we're going to use another program, which is the base approach, where we're going to line up with the base that we want to land, and then pick it up from there.
Okay, so we now need to warp time forward. This would be similar to what you would do if you were using transfer MFD or TransX. Once the burn's complete, you don't want to sit there for literally 3 days while it transfers to the moon. So we're going to press T to warp time out. And I have Orbit MFD open on the left just to help us have a reference for our gravitational influence so we know how far away we are from the Earth and everything. And go out to 10,000 at this point just to speed things up. See the gravity of the Earth's influence dropping quickly. And once it gets to 0.5, of course, we'll leave the strong influence of Earth and drop into the weak influence. And let me actually come back to 100 just for a moment and reference the moon. And we can see the moon in front of us, and we want to stop when we get to what, about 0.4?
0.442. I don't. It depends on the date, because the moon has an erratic orbit around the Earth. It's not exactly periodic.
Right.
So it really depends on the date. Sometimes you get inside the strong sphere of influence when you are at 0.38, and sometimes it goes up all the way to 0.42. So it really depends on here. Here we are on 0.41. As you can see, we're aimed smack dead center for the moon.
Yeah, I can see that the PEA looks like it's exactly the center of the moon.
We could have, of course, set a slight offset when we made the burn, but we will cover that in another video. That's a more advanced way to get to the moon than the standard way that we're doing right now. So we need now interplanetary MFD, and we're going to combine a correction burn that actually we're going to simply make a correction burn that is going to take us aligned with the base that we want to land. So you can go to menu on interplanetary.
Okay, menu.
And hit the base approach.
Menu base approach.
Okay, now you can press target and type the name of the base that you want to land.
Okay, so now we're going to target Brighton Beach and we have new data. Okay.
Okay. And now you can go to change the variables, and you can go to the altitude over here. Now you can also change the longitude and the latitude by hand if you want. If you don't have a base but you want to land on a specific location on the moon, you can enter the longitude and the latitude, and it's the same as setting a target base. Now, at what altitude do you usually arrive at the moon to perform a circularization burn. Usually for me it's about 20 kilometers,
Yeah, same
because
here.
that's also how high the features of the moon are in reality. Of course, in orbiter the moon is a perfect sphere, but I use that altitude to keep some sort of realism. If you wanted to make it more efficient, you can actually go as low as 1 kilometer or a few hundred meters, and it
Right.
would be all the same. It wouldn't matter for the flight. Okay, now these two variables we don't care about, because now we're going to use approach 4. We're going to change this variable to say for orbit insert, because this is what we want to do. We want to insert into an orbit around the moon.
Okay, let me set the altitude real quick because it's still at 120. So we're going to set the altitude for 20, and you can press.
20, sorry,
Oh yeah,
that's 20 meters. Please.
20K.
Okay.
Good catch. So you could press SET or you could do plus and minus, but using set is obviously faster.
Yeah.
And then we want to go to approach 4, and I believe you said it was orbit something.
Orbit insert. There are 3 variables. Re-entry old, that's from a previous version of interplanetary IMFD, and this is for the orbit insert. And it tells you right here. I can also change the projection. I'm pressing it right now.
Mm-hmm.
It did not help that much. And this is the delta V that we're going to need to make the correction that is going to have us aligned with the base. If you want, you can also bring on the left side map MFD and target Python bits, so you can see the change in the orbit.
Yeah, let's do that because that'll help illustrate what's actually happening here. Display orbit planes already set, target, and Brighton Beach. So you can see currently on our, and let me actually target no orbit because it has us targeting the moon. You can see currently if we were to go out to the moon, and just simply adjust our altitude, that we would have a very equatorial orbit and we would be way off from Brighton Beach. And if we were to try to land at Brighton Beach after getting into orbit around the moon, we would have a huge, huge plane change to make, and it would be very expensive to do that.
Exactly. Even now, this kind of correction is an expensive one.
Yeah.
It would be far better if we had left the Earth and try to be aligned with the base that we want to arrive already from the first burn. But we're just showing this the easiest way to get to the moon with typical burns. You get the translunar injection burn, then you get a correction, then you have to make the lunar orbit insertion, and then finally to land. These are the typical 4 steps. In more advanced flights, you can actually save one of those steps.
Right. This method is more going to be more familiar to people who are a little bit newer, maybe use transfer MFD to get out to the moon. So this will, not be quite as complicated.
One thing that you can do right now is to change this variable, the time. This is the time that you are actually going to perform this maneuver. Right now it's set to 0, so you can do it right now, and it's going to cost this. What you can do is to actually advance the time a little bit forward and see if it helps with the delta V. So perhaps it would be better if you made this maneuver a little bit later. I don't think it's going to help in this case because we're aimed right for the center of the moon, but you can give it a try and see if it helps with the delta V.
Okay, so basically once you set your altitude and set orbit insert, it's going to give you this solution and you can use it as is, or you can come up here to the TEJ and maybe bump time forward a little bit. Let's actually do an adjustment and see if going forward in time, if it will help your DV. And it looks like it's not helping. If I go forward, several hundred seconds, it's just actually getting worse. So we're just going to want to reset that. Actually, I guess set 0. And then that. So basically, the sooner we do this burn, the better off we're going to be.
Yeah, in this case, yeah. In fact, we could have done it even before we entered the lunar sphere of influence, but it wouldn't be as accurate as it is right now, the prediction that we are going to get for the altitude and delta V. That would mean that we would also have to make another mid-course correction. So basically we're doing only one, which is a little bit more expensive in delta V.
Okay, and I'm guessing that we carry out the burn the same way that we did. We just page
Exactly.
over. Got it.
Exactly. Again, fully automatic.
All right, so let's do that. Let's just do it and see what happens. So we're going to press PG to switch over to this page, then BV to bring up the burn vector page, and then AB for auto burn. And you can see that it takes over. My hands are completely free. I'm not doing anything. And it's going to carry out the burn. And all the data here that you're looking at just gives you, like we see in Transx, your inward, outward, prograde, plane change, all that. And you watch over there in Map MFD, and you can kind of see, how IMFD is performing its magic. It's pretty cool. And it looks like the burn is complete at this point. So now, I mean, basically that's it. I mean, if you've gone to the moon using Transform FD, if you've gone to the moon using Transx, then you should be in very familiar territory now. Is there any further use for IMFD going forward? Maybe we use it to do the deceleration burn.
And the deceleration, no, not really. But you can use it to make the lunar orbit insertion.
Yeah, that's actually what I meant. I'm sorry for the
Okay.
LOI. to decelerate at periapsis to
I
get.
thought you meant the deceleration to land to the base, which is no, not really. You cannot use, and you can if you want with the Delta V program, but there are easier ways to do that.
Right. All right. So what then do we need to do to set up an LOI burn?
Okay, go back to menu.
Okay, menu.
And go to orbital now.
Orbital page.
Orbital program.
Got it.
It's already preset on the circularize program, which is where we're going to need. And you can set here the burn time in order to circularize our orbit around the moon. Now, it's telling if you want to circularize at this altitude, right now, this is what you're going to need, and this is the burn time. Of course, we want to circularize when we reach periapsis, so we'll have to advance time forward, and on the left side bring up orbit MFD.
Okay, yeah, so we don't want to circularize when we're still out here 25,000 kilometers from the moon. We want to circularize when we get down to periapsis.
Exactly. We can advance the time until the PET time is the same as this, and then go back to normal time warp. And then, when the time to periapsis over here is half the time of the burn, you can make the burn circularize the orbit.
Okay, that makes sense. So out here, this gives us an indication of at least how far we're going to go forward, but as we get actually up to periapsis, the BT is going to change. So we don't want to go half of this number yet. We want to wait till we're in closer till we determine exactly when to begin the burn.
That's why I used this as a guide to get the PET the same as this, so I know that that's the time I have to take it to get back to normal time warp. And then when the time to PET is half, this time you make the burn. So you start the burn, let's say 30 seconds before periapsis, you end the burn 30 seconds after periapsis, or whatever the actual burn time will be.
Okay, so let's do that then. So right now our PET is showing 22,150 seconds. We know that we need to go forward to at least until PET is 74 seconds. So let's do that. And of course, we'll be very careful with the time warp. And in fact, once we get down to about maybe 90 seconds or 100 seconds, we know that the orientation of the vessel is going to be retrograde, more or less. So we could even kind of assist IMFD. And when we get down to about 90 seconds, we could sort of get into the retrograde orientation so that IMFD doesn't have as much work to do. Just a thought.
It's pretty much the same as I actually go to the same burn time over here and hit the AB button. Then first it will orient the vessel and then it will start the burn. So I cut it before it performs the burn and wait a few seconds more. But what you say is the same thing.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying. So you use IMFD's orientation to get the vessel basically in the orientation that it needs to be. Then you stop it and then wait till you get to half of BT and then hit AB again. Okay, so let's warp time forward
Whatever
here.
method is best for you.
Yeah, it's the same way, you know, just however you want to do it, whatever you're more comfortable with. So we're PET's about 8,000. We're getting down there. And again, be careful when you get down to the lower numbers because you're accelerating, so the time ticks by. It can get away from you if you're not careful. So we're down to 1,000 seconds, a little bit farther to go. And now we're down to about 500 seconds. So let's back off time warp a little bit, just so we don't overshoot. And again, we're going for about 74 seconds here initially.
You can also see that our periapsis altitude changed slightly from what we had set when we made the correction, but the change is usually very minor and somewhere around 10 kilometers at most. So it's not really a problem. You can, if we wanted, we could have made another correction when we were a little bit closer, about 1 hour before periapsis. But it really is meaningless. You can land the vessel just fine the way it is.
Right. So basically, if we wanted to have an exact PEA of 20 kilometers, we would have done just a slight mid-course correction there as we got in a little closer, but it doesn't make that much of a difference. Mm-hmm. So there at about 74 seconds, I pressed the AB button one time just to get the vessel oriented, then I stopped it. Now we're going to wait till we are at about 30 seconds because that will be half of BT. So as soon as this PET says 30, I'm going to press the AB button and interplanetary IMFD will circularize our orbit, and we should have a APA of about 33.95 kilometers as well. So here we are in 1 second and burning. Actually, I probably should have started that 1 second sooner since we had a little bit more orientation to do, but nevertheless, it'll be very close. And once again, I'll press T to warp time forward to get through the circularization more quickly. And burn time calculator, interplanetary MFD will go back to 1x automatically, as you saw it just do when it gets close to the end of the burn. And there we are. We've got a PEA of 3424 and an APA of 3429, so we are basically perfectly circular. Let's take a look at map MFD just to see how we are lined up. And there you have it. That's basically it, isn't it?
Yeah, that's it. From here on, all you have to do is land the vessel.
Yeah, so standard landing procedure at this point, not going to be any different than if you were using Transfer MFD, Transx, or if you were just blindly going out to the moon using nothing but Orbit MFD.
And you're already perfectly aligned with the center of the base.
Yeah, let me bring up, just out of curiosity, base sync MFD, because I'm familiar with that, and just see what it says. Yeah, according to base sync, on one orbit around, we're about 14 kilometers out from the dead center of the base, but still really close. I'm not sure if IMFD has a program that tells you something similar to this information or not. I think it does, like a base approach or something.
Yeah, the base approach program that we used all the way, all the way out when we entered the lunar soil.
Does it actually tell you, like base sync here tells us that on this one orbit, let me set the number of orbits to 1, that we would technically be 14 kilometers off from the center. Does it have a program like that?
No, not exactly, but it does not tell you how many kilometers you're going to be offset from the base. But when you use the program you can even bring it up now. You saw that we used it very early and we did not make any corrections, so we ended up with a slightly different periapsis altitude and not so much perfectly aligned. We're 14 kilometers off, which of course is very easy to fix. But if you use it again now, you can see that it tells you that with 14 meters per second of delta V, it's going to get you perfectly aligned.
And actually, just as a technical note here, that 14 meters a second would be minimized if we did the base correction at one of the nodes.
Yeah, of course.
So we are here.
Either here or here.
Right. So just an FYI, if your position happens to be way out here or way out there, it might make a difference of 2-3 meters a second. I'm not actually sure how
You
much it
can
would be.
also change the time of when you make this maneuver, and you will see if it helps. The same way we did it all the way out at Lunar Soy.
Yeah, so if we come over here to the TEJ and we just press plus a few times, you can actually, well, up to the point that we cross the node, then it goes down. But if we actually went all the way around to the other node, we would actually see the DV increasing, and then eventually it'll go back down. There, it's going back down until we get around to the other node. So if we wanted to go all the way around to the other node, we could do this base correction for as little as 5 meters, for about 5 meters, about 4.8 meters per second if we go all the way around to the other node and do the burn.
You can also change the projection over here, so you can have a nice round orbit around the moon. If it helps to see it a little bit better like this. Sorry, I pressed it.
Yeah, I pressed it too.
Okay.
Yeah. So there we have it. And what projection, what is this showing for the line of nodes? Is this, this must be a ecliptic frame or something, or...
Yeah, it really depends on what. Right now it says self. I'm more familiar with a map program as far as the projection goes. But basically, what I do is use the time of the maneuver, and check for the delta V. I mean, every time in the planar IMFD, you have a few variables to change. And you need to check for either delta V or altitude or something like that. So you change a couple of variables and you look for a specific number when it drops to a minimum. And then you use that. Of course, there's nothing wrong with using 15 meters per second instead of 5 meters per second. It's not that big a deal to line up with the base, especially if you're close to the base and you're about to land. Instead of waiting one more orbit, okay, you can use 10 meters per second more and you can land on the same orbit.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's the whole difference.
In this particular case, we have to go all the way around, and we're going to cross that other node anyway, so we might as well take advantage of that node and get the cheaper burn. But again, 5 meters, 10 meters a second, it's just not even a whole kilogram of fuel, I don't believe.
Yeah, you probably waste more to orient the ship than to make the adjustment. And basically that's it. That's the simple way to use in the planar IMFD to get from the Earth to the Moon. We already saw that the same as TransX, it doesn't really help you with the launch itself. It can help you if you want to make a direct launch to the Moon. We will cover that in another video. But basically, you get into orbit, you use the target intercept program to adjust the time of departure and the time of arrival in order to get a minimum delta V solution. You perform the burn automatically. Once you enter the lunar sphere of influence, you make a correction to line up with the base and to adjust your periapsis altitude. When you arrive at periapsis, you circularize the orbit and then you go ahead and land. This is the very basic setup.
Absolutely, and if you're not, familiar with IMFD, you may have to watch the video 2-3 times and kind of go through Orbiter yourself. When I was using TransX, it took me many attempts at using TransX before I got familiar enough with the interface that I was able to do everything properly. So we're coming up here again about 30 minutes, so let's go ahead and end this video here. I think it gives everybody the information that they need. And again, recap, rewatch the videos a couple times if need be. And going forward, we'll look at some more efficient, more sophisticated ways of using interplanetary IMFD to get out to the moon and use even less fuel to do that. Once again, if you would press that like button, leave a comment down below to let Dimitri know that you appreciate his time doing this, helping us out, helping me out, helping everybody that's watching the videos. Check out his YouTube channel as well. I'll put a link to that in the description at the bottom, in the description below the video, so you can check out his videos and subscribe there as well. And do you have any last comments here?
No, nothing else. We will cover the next things in other videos about more advanced ways to do the same journey. And that's it for me. Thanks for watching.
Yeah, thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next video.